This episode sponsored by Lake Monster Details, producing the Don's Light and Magic Legacy line of parts, offering upgrade parts and decals for accuracy, special effects, and lighting. Visit www.lakemonsterdetails.com and make it glow. Also sponsored by GCals, producing aftermarket replacement decals and custom quality graphics for your favorite spaceships. Visit www.gcals.company.site and add some personalization to your sci-fi models today. Also sponsored by Mask Design, boldly going where no masking kit has gone before. Take your model to the next level of detail and accuracy with a masking kit from Mask Design. Visit Mask Design on Facebook or click the ordering link in the notes below the video. Also sponsored by Paragrafix. Add superior detail and accuracy to your models with photo etch, resin, and multimedia accessories from your first source for photo etch parts and more. Paragrafix. They count rivets so you don't have to. Visit Paragrafix at www.paragrafix.biz or click the link in the notes below this video. Hey, what's up fellow modelers? Will here. Welcome to the Ensign's Chair, and finally another update on the 1537 Reliant. I don't think I've put anything out on this since probably almost a month before Wonderfest. It's been a while. Since I got back from Wonderfest, I have had a lot of work to do. This June, July, and August is kind of a busy time at my employer where I actually work to pay the bills. And I've been working 70-hour work weeks, sometimes 14 hours a day, sometimes 5-6 days a week. And I just don't have a lot of time to sit and work on models right now. I'm looking forward to the fall just out of the possibility, knowing that things will slow down and I'll have a little more time to work on these models. So I've got progress finally on this. I do have a little progress on the Ian Lawrence 1350 tribute build, so hopefully I'll have an update coming out on that. And I've also been working on the Matt Jeffries concept TOS shuttle a little bit at a time. But I know everybody's kind of been waiting for an update on this. I did mention, I believe, that before I left for Wonderfest, my cat had jumped on my workbench, knocked the model on the floor, and cracked the saucer completely open. That has been repaired, and I have my sensor bands back on, but I've got a couple of extra little details that you can't see right now I'm going to show you that I've added to this model in addition to the mask design paint mask. There's a couple little details that I have decided to add as well. And also I've got some stuff I'm going to show that I brought back from Wonderfest. There's some parts from Cass over at Lake Monster Details that he brought to Wonderfest for me. One of them is a nice update to the Reliant itself, the BC deck of the Reliant. So I'm going to show you that. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about how I did the paneling and the sensor bands again, since I didn't have the mask design masks anymore, since I threw them away because I wasn't expecting to have to redo them. But and would you believe, would it be surprising to you if I told you I had another upgrade that I need to show you? So stick with me, I'll show you that. Give me a minute, I'll put you on the bench, we'll get to work. Alright guys, so welcome back. Good to be back from Wonderfest. But a couple things I want to show that I brought back from Wonderfest. I didn't bring a whole lot back this year. So I did an unboxing of this already, so I'm not going to go into this too much. If you want to see more detail on this, I did do an unboxing video on this. This is the Matt Jeffries concept shuttle from Cosmic Scale Models at 172 scale. Now, I do have a little bit of an update on this since I put out that that unboxing video. So Jeff Fink, who is the designer of his 3D model, he reached out to me. I had commented on that I love the model, but that I wish I had bought the STL files instead. Now, I don't regret buying this because this will still be a great little easy build. I don't know if I'm going to do this with wiring or not now, with lighting or not. I may still do it with lighting. But Jeffrey Fink was kind enough to send me over the STL files for this, and I believe it's 148 scale is what the 3D STL files are. So it's a little bit bigger than this. 148. This is 172, so almost twice the size of this, I'm guessing. I don't know if that quite equates out that way with scale, but it is bigger than this model. And it does have the pathways through the wings here, the pylons, if you will, to run wires for the lighting to the nacelles. And that's one of the issues I had with this smaller 148 scale, or 172 scale, is that there was no, I would have to trench, just like on the Enterprise D, to run wiring to the nacelles to light them. So I can say for sure that he sent over those files, and I can confirm that there is, there are conduit, I guess you could say, openings through the pylon to get to the nacelle to light it on the larger 148 scale. But the only drawback to that is it does not come with figures, because I think he said somebody else did the figures for this, so he could not provide files for that if he does have the files. I'm assuming he does, because these are 3D prints as well in the kit. But it's easy enough to come by, find figures that you can use for that larger scale model on the internet. But so I appreciate Jeff. Thanks for sending the 3D files, 3D files over, and thank you for designing a wonderful kit. I do like this kit, and again, you can get this from Cosmic Scale Models on their website. Just do a Google search, and their website will come right up. But just wanted to mention that, a little update on that since I put out that unboxing video. Now, the great thing is when I share a room with Cass whenever we go to Wonderfest, and typically, if there's anything I don't need like really desperately and I can wait, I'll typically have him wait and just bring it to me at Wonderfest. So there was a couple things he brought. The first thing he brought me was this BC deck upgrade for the 1537 refit or A. You can use it for either one. It's the same. The deck didn't change. But what does change, and what he does give you the option for on this, is he does give you the option of either having the officer's lounge, or you can get this with the dining room, the officer's mess hall, whatever you want to call it. But he does provide that too. The great thing about these resin casts that he does is that somehow, I don't know how he does it, but while the rest of this is frosted, these windows are actually crystal clear. They're very clear. I don't know if I can really do much to show you just how clear these are. Let me see if I can focus this some, and if that will, I don't know if the camera's really picking that up very well, but these are actually pretty clear where the windows are, even though the rest of this is frosted. You can see the windows there. Let me try putting this piece in. Let's take a look. Without it being painted and having some color to offset, it's going to be hard to tell though. But trust me, these windows are crystal clear. When he casts these, I don't know how he does. I don't know if he polishes these separately or what. That may be a discussion I have to have with Cass. We are going to do another live stream at some point, because there are some other things to catch up on with Cass as far as Lake Monster details and talking about 3D printing and all that. So we are going to have a discussion on that. But anyway, these parts are available over at LakeMonsterDetails.com. He also brought me, and I've shown these before, but there's a little difference with one of these. Now, he sent me over the 4 RCS thrusters that you need for the Reliant, because remember, the RCS thrusters on the Reliant are only on these 2 forward corners, so you got an upper and a lower. So he does sell these in sets of 4 on his website. He also has the crystal clear, well, the grills, the warp chiller grills for the 1537 Reliant. He does these in 3 different flavors. You can get them in clear, like I prefer. He also does these in a violet and a blue. So depending on whatever color you want to do, you can get them in those colors. I like to get them in clear just because I like when the lights are off on the model. that you don't necessarily see that color. Some people may want to see that color when the lights are off. So it's really up to you as to what you want to do for your choice of what color grills to get. But he did bring me a set of those. This is for the other. I did show since I've got all my upgrades done now, my mods done for the 1537 Reliant. Since there was some I couldn't use on this model, I'm doing another model now with those upgrades on it. So I've got this, and he also brought me a updated version of the Reliant BC deck with the bridge. Now the bridge is the same as it was before. Now on this build I'm going to do something a little different. The build that I'm working on here, I actually used the molded in details that Cass has for the 3 separate lights on each of these openings. And on the build that I'm doing now, I'm actually going to do something I did. I actually did a build of the Reliant before I started my channel, probably, I don't know, 6 years ago. And in that build I used the kit bridge, but what I did was I used 3 small red SMDs for each individual light. And I don't have a build video on it, but if you look back on my Facebook page, I did post pictures of that. You'll have to look way back for it, but there are photos of that build on there. If you look at Jordan and Ken's build, I think Ken right now actually drilled holes into the bottom of this to insert individual SMDs. But if you look at the studio model, you can actually see the 3 bulbs, the 3 red bulbs separately in this opening. So what I'm going to do is, just like that first build I did several years ago, I'm going to open this up a little bit and put individual, or I may just glue the SMDs to the outside of the openings here themselves and fix it that way. I'm not going to drill holes into it and put it in there. Then you still got to mask it off and do all of that. But what I'm going to do is, like I said, the first build I did of this, I'm going to do 3 individual red SMDs on each of these, plus the 3 on the bottom for the forward opening. I'm just going to use 3 red SMDs in the open for that. Whereas this build here, I did just a single white, I think a 3mm or 5mm SMD or LED in this, and that just lit up the whole thing. But that's the way I'm going to do it on this build. Do something a little bit different. But the update on this is actually on the BC deck. So on the original mold, which is the one that I used here that Cass provided, you can see you've got those 4 individual windows. Let me try to focus this just a little bit. You can see those 4 individual windows. I'm still doing some work on the back here, especially I notice there's a little bit of a gap on the back side of the bridge here I need to fill in, so I've been working on that. And so I've got those windows. You can see there's 4 separate windows, and they're flush with the back of that BC deck. Well, if you look at, I can pull a picture up here real quick. If you look at the studio model, you can see it's actually recessed. It's not flush with the hull there, and it's a little unclear as to whether there's individual inside that recessed area, whether there's individual window panes or if it's just one big open window. So what Cass did here was he actually did this. Focus this again. He actually did this as one long open window, and you can see it there. You can see he's actually got some kind of ridging or pleating there where the window is. And so it's up to you. You can paint window panes in this, or you can just leave it one big window. Like I said, looking at the movie, because I've got a screen capture too where you can see it a little bit, and it actually looks like that may be one big window on the back of the model there. So I don't know. I can't say you'd be wrong to do it either way. I may just leave this as one big open window on the back there, because like I said, that's kind of the way it looks when you look at the studio model and the screenshots. It's hard to tell. But so he did update this to make this recessed so it's not flush with the outside of the BC deck. So I appreciate Cass for that attention to detail. He does go in. He's got these. A lot of this stuff is originally from when it was Don's Light and Magic, and he has been going through and making improvements. He's been doing remasters of the molds, and he's been going through also from time to time and making improvements on the molds themselves. So Make sure you check out Cass's website, lakemonsterdetails.com. He's got all these parts on there, including this updated BC deck for the Reliant now. But that's what I'm going to do with that. I do have one thing I need to mention real quick before we get into doing some work here. And that is that the day before I left for Wonderfest, I was working on the model and just trying to do a few little things, and I had to run to the bathroom real quick. Went to the bathroom, heard this this thump come back in, and this was laying on the floor. And what happened was, my cats get up here all the time. They don't mess with stuff typically, but I think what happened was I had this sitting on a kind of a hand towel, so that it didn't get the bottom where it's painted didn't get messed up. You know, it's sitting on something soft. And my cat, it looks like his claw got caught in that when he went to jump down, and the model came with it. So that sucks, but it looks like I should be able to make a pretty easy fix. It did split the seam open around the edge of the saucer, not completely around, but I guess mainly on the side where it hit the floor. I think it hit right here because there is a little bit of a ding there that I've got to do a little bit more work on. But I did, for the most part, get this filled back in and puttied and sanded. There are a couple spots where I had to come back over it with some more putty that I've still got to come back and sand again. Obviously, I'm going to have to repair my sensor band, which I'd already had on here. You can see around there, and then on this side it wasn't as damaged. But it's still going to take some work to do. I'm going to have to repair this, put some white back over this. And then, unfortunately, I did save a little bit of the, at least I think I did, I hope I did. I did save a little bit of masking for this Aztecing. So hopefully I can just put a piece of that over here, reapply the Aztecing there, and that'll be fixed. I've got to double check. I think I saved some, but I was doing a lot of cleanup before I went to Wonderfest, so I can't be 100% sure of that. But anyway, that's where I'm at with this. I am going to, I'm about ready to wire this up and do a light test. I may just go ahead and attach the roll bar because honestly, a light test isn't going to make much of a difference at this point. Everything's sealed up. This is sealed up. The roll bar's sealed up. So something's not wired right. There's very little chance that I'm going to be able to fix it at this point. So hopefully everything, fingers crossed, is wired up properly. I am a little concerned with one of these SMDs when I was pulling off the masking, the liquid masking. I am a little bit concerned about whether or not I damaged the SMD when I pulled it off. So I do need to do a light test and see where we're at on that. But I need to fix that damage around the rim here and get that repaired before I go any further. I've still got to resolve the issue with, I'm not liking the way that these the painting on the RCS thrusters or on these phaser banks look on the bottom here. I think that red line is just too thick. I made it too wide, so I may have to figure out a way to kind of narrow that out some and clean it up a bit because it is a little messy. So I've got a little bit of work to do here. Once I get everything squared away and come back, we will look at trying to get this wired up and getting that roll bar attached and hopefully getting one step closer to being done with this build. So give me a little bit and we'll be back. Alright, so, you know, sometimes the worst disasters turn out to have a little bit of a silver lining still. So, what I'm talking about is the model got knocked off. My cat got a little overexcited. Knocked the model off, like I mentioned. I fixed the seal, or the seam around the side. It's all sealed back up and sanded and repainted, and we're good to go there. So, save the day there. But something I noticed, you know, when I was looking at this, when I was getting it prepped back up, and I was making my plans to get all the paneling painted back on, was, you know, I realized that part of the paint masking set that comes from Mass Design doesn't provide any panels for painting any panels in between the sensor bands. And I thought about this because I know that. And maybe it's just because of the small size of the scale of the model that, you know, they didn't think that it was important to do that, or anybody really cared. But the 1350 model, the kit that Mass Design puts out for that does include masking to paint the panels around the edge of the saucer and in between the panel line, or the sensor bands themselves. And when I looked at the model, I've looked at these images of the studio model several times, and I really never paid attention to it. So I went back and looked. And I'm going to show you a picture. And there's actually one other thing I got to talk about in this picture. But when you look at this picture, it's hard to see, and I don't know how this image is going to process when I process this video to go to YouTube. But if you can find this image online and you look at it, it looks to me like there may be some panels spread out between the sensor bands in certain spots. It looks like there may be some closer to the RCS thruster and some closer back to that right side, which is what I'm getting ready to talk about. As you notice in this image, there is a docking port there, just like there was on the refit, or is on the refit model. On the refit model, it's a little more recessed. This one here, it seems to be like a flush piece that they added or put onto the model. It doesn't seem like it's recessed into the model. But I noticed that, and again, why I didn't notice this before, I don't know. But I noticed that, and I'm like, well, I got to add that to the model now. Got to add that upgrade. So what I did was I went in and I made a little piece, and I'll see if I can focus this in here for you a little bit. But that's the little piece I made, and I think that'll work. It's only about 1 millimeter thick, and you can see I even managed to put that little separation there where the doors would open in the middle. I do have a little piece of junk on that one edge I'm going to have to clean off, and probably, I'll see if I can get it off without dinging up the paint. But anyway, that's the part. It's a real simple thing to add on, because since the studio model has this sticking out a little bit, you don't really have to worry about drilling out or removing any material from the outside of the hole. Just that piece there, I'll just glue it right on top, right on the edge, which is good because I still got a little bit of a ding right here that didn't quite get filled in properly. So that door is actually going to cover that. So bonus, but I'll get that added on after I get this side painted. And I'll tell you what I'm working on as far as getting those panels and the sensor bands painted back on. Now, obviously, I can't reuse the Mass Design paint mask because, one, I've already used them, and two, I've already tossed them. So, hey, I wasn't expecting to have to redo this. But it was simple enough to go in and make my own paint masks for those sides. Just making some various shaped and sized squares. And these have worked out great. I actually did the other side. I'll show you that here in a minute. But I want to talk about this a second. So you'll notice on the top here, I have actually made a strip with various size squares, random pattern, and this is going to go where the sensor bands are going to go. So basically I will stick this to the outside rim here and paint light gray, and let's see if I can use this piece here. The sensor bands are about 1 millimeter thick, going by the measurements I got off of the ones that were already painted on here using the Mass Design set. So I have made these panels to where, and this isn't quite straight, but you'll get the idea. And I will show you how I know this will work here in a second. But so basically, the panel lines will go in between. I've made these squares positioned to where the panel lines, or the sensor bands will run in between these windows. So you'll have one here, you'll have another one above this window, and then another one above this smaller window here. So those will be your 3 sensor bands running through these squares. That'll put all these squares in between the sensor bands, so you get a little bit of paneling in between the sensor bands. So that's going to work out great. So I've got that. I also cut my own masks for the sensor bands. I'll see if I can focus this enough for you to, I don't know if it'll show up. I think you can see them there a little bit maybe. But that's the masking for the sensor band. So I've got that cut and ready to go. Now I did try to print this on black vinyl, but the problem with black vinyl was that you can't see through it. So when I go to place the black vinyl over the siding, I can't line it up with the windows to make sure that the sensor bands aren't running through a window somewhere. So what I ended up doing was I had this stuff here that is semi-transparent. This is more like a frisket material, which is fine because you don't have any real complicated cuts or corners that you have to fit the masking over, which would be perfect for the black vinyl. But because it's a flatter surface, other than this general slight curve, or this gradual curve that you got to make it go around, it works fine for that. So I cut it on this, and you can see it's a bit transparent. You can see a little bit through there. You can see the backing paper through it. So once I go to lay all this stuff down, whenever I have to lay it down, I can look at it and I can get it lined up with the windows to make sure my sensor bands are running between the windows and not through a window. I can also make sure that my square blocks line up properly with the windows. So basically, this top row of windows will line up with this second from the top row of squares, and that's how I'll get that lined up. So I've got that worked out. But again, like I said, I want to get that done, and then I will attach this door, the docking bay door, and get that on there. And once I get that done, we will be ready to see what we're ready to move on to next. But let me work on that. And oh, almost forgot. Let me show you how this actually turned out. So I did one side, and here is the side. I have to focus here a little bit. Here's the side that I did, and you can see, hopefully if the video is showing up and this isn't washing out in the camera, it looks like I can see it in my viewer, but hopefully it's showing on your screen. But you can see the light panels, the light paneling that did on the in between the center. That turned out great. It's very subtle. That's just the way I wanted it. And you can see all I did was the tan color for in between the sensor bands. I did back here do the two color patterns for back here. I did the tan and then the blue with that on the front and the back. So that's done, but you see again I've got that paneling in between the sensor bands here. So that turned out great. I'm really happy with the way that turned out. So I am going to continue with that and get that done on the port side, and then we'll get that, like I said, that docking bay door added on, and we'll come back and take a look at it. So just give me a little bit to work on that. All right, so I'm going to record this segment, trying to show you exactly how I'm doing this. If it doesn't turn out great, or it just doesn't show up very well, I'll cut this scene out. But if you're seeing it, that means this ends up working out, and I'll show you how I'm applying these panels. Take this little black line off because we don't need that. I'll show you how I'm applying these panels and doing my painting. This is basically very similar to the way the Mass Design set is done. I've got this one that's got these two that have the most panels are going to be the dark or the tan, and then these ones I just want a couple of the blue panels, so I only did a couple of those on there. And basically we'll pull this off, and again you can see that's very transparent, which is good because when I go to put this on here, I want to make sure that these panels are lining up properly to the windows, and that everything is fitting where it should. So on this mask here, you'll see these squares here line up with the windows, so that way when that sensor band runs through, it'll be just above these two squares right here. So that's basically how that'll go on. See, it goes on real easy, just like the Mass Design one. So we got that one on, and then we'll do this one here. And this just lines up on the back side, again lining up these squares with the windows on the bottom. So you can see this square is actually going to be around the window, and then this square here, so that way I know my sensor bands are going to run above and below that line. So I've got those on. You see they go on real easy. It's not very difficult, just like with the Mass Design kit. He's going real easy. Put them on, and that'll give us our tan squares. And for this part up here, I'm going to take this long strip here, and what I'm going to do is I am going to line it up, get the edge matched up to the edge of this one. So we'll get that on here. And if it overlaps a little bit, that's fine. But what I'm trying to do is, you can see I've got this square here. I'm trying to get lined up on this window. So that way, and the great thing about this more frisket type material is you can pick it up and put it back down as many times as you need to get it lined up. This stuff works out great. So from there, it's just a matter of, again, wrapping this around, getting these squares lined up with the window, so you can see there, fell on the window, so we're doing good. Just keep on coming around. And this does flex a little bit so that you can move it up or down a little bit just to get it to line up properly. There. Okay. All right. So there we go. We got that around, and then on the front here you can see that open panel is lining up in between the sensor bands here. So we can paint that in, and we're just going to smooth this down. Now if this doesn't fit perfectly, that's all right. When I painted this last time, some of these had a little bit of a gap between them, but it works pretty much like a stencil. It will still put the square on there, and it'll be good to go, even if it has a little bit of a misshape to it just because of that gap. You're not going to hurt anything. It's not really going to be noticeable, because remember, we're going to have a sensor band come along, and that's going to kind of cut some of these edges anyway. So, but that's how that goes on. So I've got that on. That's going to be the tan color. I'll get that painted on, and we'll come back and pull it off and take a look, and I'll show you how to apply the second set. Alright, so I've got that first layer painted on. I'll go ahead and pull this masking tape off here. Try to reuse that as much as possible so I'm not going through a bunch of masking tape. Piece off. Alright, so let's see. Let's take this back one off. And you can see, focusing a little bit here. And you can see those panels on there. You can still see a little bit of the panel lines too from previously. I didn't worry about getting rid of them since I was going to be repainting them. But you can see even with that, those squares fall perfectly in between those sensor lines. I keep calling them panel lines. They fall perfectly between those sensor bands. So that actually looks good. Let's peel this one off. Again, you can see those on there. And let's peel off this one. And there we go. There's all of our panels on there. You can see them on that side too. So there we go. So we got all of our panels in place there. So the next thing to do is going to be to put that blue on. That is going to go on the back here for these two sections. So I'll take these. These I don't have to worry about lining up too much because these are above where the sensor bands are going to be. So I'll just get these lined up on here as best I can. Just make sure they're straight so they're not crooked or anything when I paint them. Let's see those go on pretty easy. And I'll put this one on. And there we go. So that's in place. So now I'll mask off this back area, paint the blue on, and we'll come back and look at the finish. Right, so got the blue painted on. There's a little quick little spray with the airbrush. Since it's only a couple panels, I'm going to get this pulled off. I think I've got as much use out of these as I can. They're losing their tackiness. Alright, let's pull this off. And pull this one off. And there we go. So we've got our couple of little blue squares on there for our accents. So we've got that done. So the next step is going to be to get that sensor band mask in place. And I've already got that kind of affixed to a piece of transfer tape here. Now this transfer tape hasn't been sticking very well. So we'll see how well this works out, but basically I need to start off by getting this lined up with the existing sensor bands. So we got that there. And then it's just a matter of making sure that the sensor band masks, which are going to come off, line up above and below and between all the windows like they're supposed to. And that's what I was saying about this being clear. It makes it easy for me to look at this and line it up. And you can see we've got that. I don't know if you'll be able to make it out on camera, but we got that lined up with the existing sensor bands. And we'll just keep putting this in place as we go around. Alright, so we got that in place. We can peel this clear off and work this down. A couple little wrinkles here I got to work out. I'm going to have to move this a little bit on this end. So we'll lift this end up a little bit. And reposition it. Just need it to come down just a little bit. And it actually lined up really well with the panel lines I had done previously. Move everything down here a little bit. Sorry, blocking the view there, so you can't see what I'm doing. Not really anything to see, nothing to see here, folks. Alright, I think we're good there. And then what I'll have to do is I'll have to take some shorter pieces. I'm going to have to cut some shorter pieces, which is what you've seen I've done here. To fit on this back sections here. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm not going to do all of this on camera. You can see what you get the gist of it. But I'm going to get this all done and masked, and we'll come back and take a look before I throw that sensor band blue on here. So give me a minute. Alright, so we've got sensor band masks in place. You can see how that worked there. Basically got that thicker line lined up with the windows, and made sure those bands ran in between the windows and peeled them off. And we'll go get the sensor band blue that I've got mixed up here. Now I did mine, just I think I had mentioned this before, I did mine a little bit lighter of a color than what it calls for in the mass design paint, because when you look at it, the studio model, it's like a lighter blue to me, and it was just coming out a little bit dark. So I just added quite a few drops of white to what the mass design paint mix calls for, just to lighten it up a bit. So you can see that there. It's kind of a lighter blue. But I'm going to go get this painted on, and we'll come pull all this off and get a look at it. Alright, so we've got that painted up, so let's go ahead and remove this mask in here. I say we, but when I say we, I mean me. See how this turned out. And where's my knife at? I'll just peel this up. Alright, there we are. Let me focus this here. You can see. And you can see how that worked out. You can see the paneling Landed perfectly between the sensor bands. Now there's a little bit of the edging there. That's just where the paint is kind of whelped up around. I don't know what term would be for it, but it kind of builds up a little bit along the tape edge. So what I'll do is I'll let that dry, and then I'll come real lightly, maybe with a slightly damp cloth, and just come over that just lightly, and that'll take that that raised edge from around the sensor bands there. So just peel it up. There we go. There's that part. You can see again all those panels falling in between the sensor bands, just like we wanted. And let's get this one peeled off. And one more. All right. And there we go. You can see, ugh, God, those thrusters look terrible. Those definitely going to need some work. But you can see how those panels, that worked out great. They fell right in between the sensor bands, just like I wanted. So looks good. So now the last thing I need to do here, try to clean up some of this mess real quick, is I want to attach that those doors there. I want to get that attached to it, and it should be dry, hopefully. Let's peel this off. Alright, I'm going to take this hatch, and that's going to go right here. And I might have to do a little touch up on this after I get it on there. But it's basically going to sit right there. And I'm going to get that glued in place. But yeah, this should sit right on there. It still feels like it's a little wet. So I'm going to wait a little bit, and I'm going to attach that. But you get the idea of how that's going to go. It's just going to sit on there. I may have to do a little bit of, if I've got to do a little seam work on it, I will use a little bit of my thinned out Perfect Plastic Putty slurry around it. That way I could just clean it up with a water and some Q-tip, and I don't have to do any sanding and mess up the panel lines I've got on here now. But I'll get that done between now and next episode. But I think that pretty much gives you an idea of what I'm working on to get those edges looking good. So I think that looks a lot better. A little more detail added to it. But so my plan is go ahead. I'll get that hatch put on and worked in. And when we come back next episode, we should be all ready for a light test. Another thing I got to work on too is this back end here. I have not completely worked this seam back in from where it cracked open on the back yet, but I think I'm going to have to use some sheet styrene to kind of bring an edge back to this, because where it cracked at, it's kind of getting a little rounded from me puttying and sanding. So I'm going to have to use a little bit of thin sheet styrene, slice a strip out and just lay it right along this edge, and then putty and sand it to blend it in to get that back in. But I'll get that worked out before next episode. And like I said, pretty much next episode I'm going to look to just get this wired up, get our roll bar and the cells attached, and hopefully get this thing lit up and see how it's looking. So, but as always, I want to say thank you to everybody for watching this. You taking your time out of your day to come and sit here and watch me piddle around with the model. And as always, I want to give a shout out to my sponsors: Gus over at G-Cows, Gary over at Mass Design, Cass over at Lake Monster Details, and Paul over at Paragrafix. Thank you all for your contributions to getting this model built and looking as good as it can. But again, everybody watching, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me out tremendously, especially with my sponsors. So please hit that subscribe button, and then if you want the updates every time I put out a video, hit that little bell icon, and every time I put out another video, you'll automatically get notified when it comes out. So again, thank you everybody for watching. Till next time, keep modeling.